Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. We're going to be talking today about a kind of unsolved / newly solved Easter egg, but first, I need to remind you there are only 3 days left to pick up one of these, a Blightfather t-shirt. They're available for only the next 3 days on waffles.ownage.com, so be quick. Now then, we're going to be talking today about an Easter egg that is kind of a meaning behind something and a reference to something that no one has ever really put together before now. I want to make it extra super duper clear that this isn't something that I have solved or anything like that. All of the credit for this goes to Richkiller, who at this point is becoming a bit of a phenom in the sort of Easter egg and cipher solving community. Richkiller famously solved the ADFGX cipher from Mob of the Dead through some incredible feat of cipher-solving skill and tenacity, and now we've got another thing coming from Richkiller, which is just its own story entirely. So I'm basically going to run through what's happened here, give you the background as Richkiller does in his thread, and then show you what all this is kind of leading up towards and what it all means. Back when Buried came out, way back during Black Ops 2, there was a lot of speculation about what exactly was going on with the location of the map. I mean, you've got the fact that it says resolution 1295 on the loading screen, and then you've got this mansion underground with a hedge maze and a bunch of other weird stuff going on. I mean, there's a whole town down there. And then above ground, you've got this kind of mining facility. And it's all very interesting stuff. Now, one of the particular components of that we're going to focus on today is the hedge maze. Queen made a video in 2017, I believe, talking about the location of the maze and basically saying that the Missouri Botanical Garden matches the geography that we see laid out in the map by the Treyarch developers. It's an extremely similar match. I'll have a picture on screen right now so you can take a look, and even is similar down to the things like the barriers between certain areas and stuff like that. Now, last year, Jimmy Zielinski tweeted and said, "Has anyone ever located the hedge maze IRL?" Now, Jimmy Zielinski, in case you don't know, because there are people that don't know about Jimmy Zielinski in 2019 because he's been gone for so long, he was basically the Jason Blundell of Black Ops 1 and some of Black Ops 2. He was the creative director of the Zombies mode, just like Jason is now for Zombies, and he was the guy that was the figurehead of Zombies at Treyarch at that time. And a very important, relevant fact about Jimmy from that time is that he would often tweet out really weird, cryptic things about zombies on his Twitter account, and so would people like Reza El Ghazi and other members of the dev team who used to work at the studio. Reza's not there anymore, but there are a couple of devs that would tweet out things like that. So Jimmy, long gone from Treyarch, tweets his tweet just out of curiosity, I guess, and Queen responds and says, "Yeah, I made this video last year. Here it is. It's pretty cool." And Jimmy then responds with "cool!" exclamation mark, which makes me think of one of my physics professors who would constantly go, "Cool! Here's a problem I haven't seen before. Let's try and figure out how to solve it and have fun along the way." Shout out to you, Mark. But he tweeted "cool," and he also added a set of coordinates. Now, Queen was like, what? And responded saying, "Well, have you got any more coordinates laying around? Like, maybe we can solve some more Easter eggs this way?" And Jimmy replied and said, "Welp, no, perhaps follow the other connections." This, at face value, is a pretty ambiguous thing to say. Welp, no, perhaps follow the other connections. It seems like he's hinting about something else that's related or that's relevant, but he isn't really willing to be forthcoming and give us the information in order to get us there because it's already right in front of our faces. And this is where our boy Richkiller comes in. If you look at the coordinates, they point towards the Missouri Botanical Garden. So not really any surprises there. Jimmy is saying, "Has anyone found this location?" Queen's saying, "Yes." And Jimmy's saying, "Ah," and then posting the coordinates. But that's a little strange when we already know the place that he was talking about. So why is he giving us more coordinates now? Well, what Richkiller did is go a little deeper and zoom in on the specific exact point where the coordinates lead us to. It turns out that if you zoom in on that specific point of land, you'll find an object called a climatron inside the Missouri Botanical Garden. That straight away, for any zombies story theorist, sounds very suspicious, right? Climatron being mentioned in an era of zombies when Jimmy is playing around with all of these ideas to do with controlling the weather and HARP and just all of the mythos that he was injecting into the mode at that time. A climatron sounds extremely suspicious. And if you look up what the climatron is in Missouri Botanical Gardens, what you find is basically the source reference material for the Moon Biodome. It's a geodesic dome conservatory, and I mean, the parallels between this particular climatron structure and the actual Moon Biodome just cannot be disregarded. It's very clearly the source material, especially as Jimmy has basically gone, you know what, I'm just going to point them directly to exactly where this is, because why not? Maybe I'm feeling generous today, something like that. Moon is also one of Jimmy's kind of crowning achievements from his career working on the zombies mode, and so it's kind of no surprise that he might point us towards something that we'd missed in the past, but that is very much a kind of hallmark, very recognizable aspect of one of his most recognizable maps. It's cool as well because back then, during Jimmy's time on zombies, the way we talked about the story and the way that the story evolved was very different to how Jason runs the ship. What Jason does is he says, Craig, write me a story that's going to last the next 3 years. And then Craig writes that story and they tell the story. And it's a very deliberate and composed method of storytelling. Whereas with Jimmy, he was pretty much flying by the seat of his pants for the majority of his time as creative director. And that was because that's the style that we all loved back then. The whole intrigue of zombies came from the fact that Unearthed came out, and then we basically decided where Shinonuma was gonna be. And then we basically decided where Deriz was gonna be. And as much as the Treyarch audio team were doing a huge amount of narrative work, figuring out where to take us next, what would feed our imaginations the most, etc., it was very much a collaborative experience where the community would zoom in on a particular detail that they found in a certain map, and that would then spawn a whole load of theories, which would then influence the Treyarch developers to go, oh, all of these ideas are really cool, let's feed that, let's keep encouraging that by bringing them to a new place that relates to all of that stuff that they've just theorized about. It was an awesome feedback loop that we just don't have anymore. And so, I think it's goddamn awesome that Jimmy has basically pointed us here towards a real-life location once again that made its way into the zombies mode in the same way that so many other real-life locations did. It's exactly this kind of emergent storytelling and exactly this kind of basing things in real-world history and real-world culture and real-world geography and design, etc., that made the origins of zombies so fascinating to me. And I mean, I just love it. I love the fact that we now know, and we can now theorize about the fact, that the Moon Biodome might have canonically had some inspiration in this botanical garden. It makes you wonder as well, right? What other real-world structures have inspired things in zombies in history that we've never even realized were inspiration for the mode? And moreover, what might we have missed in the past that could have actually completely changed the direction that the developers went in for the story while Jimmy was in charge? We could have run in a certain direction with certain pieces of lore on Moon or on other maps that could have completely changed the direction they took the story in. And obviously the community decided to go the direction that it did, and so we got the story that we did. But there are so many other possibilities for how this could have gone that we'll never know about, because they're alternate universes, right? They're complete other worlds where things worked out a little differently and the zombie story ended up in a very different place. And this is something that I actually talked to Jimmy about in person when I met up with him a couple years ago. And I'm not going to share anything from that conversation because I don't think he'd want me to, but I think that it's a really interesting concept that the old story played with masterfully and we don't really have right now. What if things worked out a little differently in our actions in game and our actions in the theory community and the story community, etc., and how might that have changed what we ended up with? It's worth pondering. And I think that's why Jimmy brought it up to me and we talked about it for a while when I met up with him a couple years ago, and it's something that's maybe worth a little thought. So Richkiller, congratulations. This was really awesome for you to find because it brought me back, honestly, to like 2012, 2011, 2010, looking into all these old weird theories for the zombie story that we're a little bit more restricted in doing nowadays, and it was a really nice throwback. I loved it. So thanks for watching. I've been MrRoflWaffles. Reminder, waffles.ownage.com. If you want a shirt, now is your last opportunity. Thanks for watching. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Please buy a shirt. They are nice and are good. Yes. Please buy a shirt today or I die.